points at 72.91, the pound buying $1.25 and €1.13. LBC weather, heavy rain for parts of northern and southern England, Wales and eastern Scotland overnight, a low of 12. Tomorrow showers continuing in the far north, brighter though further south with a high of 20 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, 20 years ago, Tony Blair created the Supreme Court. And there are some who will think that the judgment that was given this morning saying that the advice the Prime Minister had given to the Queen to prorogue Parliament ahead of a Queen's speech was unlawful. There are some who will say that that's a very political judgment, perhaps more than a legal judgment. But seems to me, whatever we think of the judgment, the fact is it's happened. The highest court in the land has ruled and made that decision. And I do think that in the months and years to come, we need to think about the creation of that court and now its active role in politics. And maybe that takes us towards a written constitution. I don't see how we can avoid doing that. But I don't think that's the debate for today. The debate is, I repeat, the Prime Minister has been found by the highest court in the land to have acted unlawfully in the advice that he gave to Her Majesty the Queen. It doesn't actually get much more serious than that. In response, there have been calls on the Prime Minister to resign. Firstly, Nicola Sturgeon of the SNP.
If the rules of democracy are to mean anything, then I think a Prime Minister with any honour would tender his resignation today.
I think Boris Johnson should resign. He's been found guilty, effectively, of having misled the country, having misled the Queen, having prorogued Parliament unlawfully.
I invite Boris Johnson, in the historic words, to consider his position and become the shortest-serving Prime Minister there's ever been.
Well, in defence, Boris Johnson, who of course is in New York, he's been at the UN summit. He met briefly with Donald Trump this afternoon. He is flying back overnight. He'll be back here because Parliament will actually, it's not going to resume as such because it never really prorogued at all, according to the court. So it's it's a continuum. 11:30 tomorrow morning. This is what Boris had to say in his response.
I strongly disagree with this decision of the Supreme Court. I have utmost respect for our judiciary. I don't think this was the right decision. I think that the prerogative of prorogation has been used for centuries without this kind of challenge. It's perfectly usual to have a Queen's speech. That's what we want to do.
Yep, absolutely perfectly usual, but these are not perfectly usual times. I have to say, I think he's going to have to, as a matter of honour, offer his resignation to the House of Commons tomorrow and see whether they accept it. I don't see any other way round it. I also, rather than blaming the court, I take the view that the announcement of that Queen's speech and the prorogation of Parliament, and let's be honest about it, it was just for a few days because the party conference season was coming. It had a limited political upside. It allowed Boris Johnson to put out his domestic agenda. But hey, he had a conference speech as leader to do that anyway. The upside of this was tiny. The downside, he united the Remainers, united the establishment, forced, in a sense, the Benn Act to go through Parliament, 21 of his own MPs to have the whip taken away from them, and now this judgment. It has been a catastrophic political disaster going for this. That is what I think. Let's get some reaction from a neutral. Let's go to Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. Theo, they're in real trouble, aren't they?
The government is in real trouble, and it is looking like the Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, is going to be the fall guy because of the legal advice he gave to Boris Johnson that it would be legal to prorogue Parliament. The Supreme Court today overruling that comprehensively.
11-0.
11-0, saying that it was, in effect, the result of the prorogation was void because it, as Lady Hale, the President of the Supreme Court, said, it might as well have been written on a blank sheet of paper because it was unlawful. It was an unprecedented step by the Supreme Court. The courts and the executive and Parliament have always been separate. And the argument that the government made was that the court had no right to intervene in politics. The decision the Supreme Court came to was that because Parliament could no longer hold the executive to account, because Number 10 had prorogued Parliament, Prime Minister had prorogued Parliament, it was therefore their job to make a ruling on it, and that in effect gave the Speaker, John Bercow, a carte blanche to resume Parliament. I was going to say recall Parliament.
No, it's not.
But it's not.
No,
it's not recall Parliament.
It's a continuum.
It's a continuation because, of course, the ruling in the Supreme Court was that Parliament had never been prorogued because Boris Johnson's motives in the prorogation of Parliament were to, in effect, to avoid scrutiny of his Brexit strategy by MPs, and Parliament no longer had the power in order to hold the executive to account, and therefore John Bercow, without the need for consultation or a request or a demand from Number 10 Downing Street, could resume Parliament. And it will tomorrow.
John Bercow is the most powerful man in Milan tonight. Of that, there is little question. Theo, the Attorney General gave advice that it was legal to do this. But it wasn't the Attorney General's political decision to go for a Queen's speech. That clearly comes from deep inside the Prime Minister's office and his chief strategist, Dominic Cummings. Has Dominic Cummings got anything right since he's been in Number 10?
Shall I put the Dominic Cummings point of view?
Please.
This would be the Dominic Cummings point of view. That what is building up now is this narrative of the establishment versus the people, and Boris Johnson is on the side of the people, those 17.4 million people who voted to leave the European Union. And whether it is Joe Johnson, his brother, who resigned from the government and resigned as a Conservative MP, whether it is Amber Rudd, who resigned as Work and Pensions Secretary, whether it is Parliament and MPs trying to hold the Speaker in his chair to stop him from, to prevent the prorogation of Parliament, all those 11 justices in the Supreme Court. Boris Johnson is coming up against these forces, and he is desperate to get Brexit delivered on October the 31st. And what we're seeing is this, we're reaching a boiling point where, and this is the strategy, when we switch to a general election, when we get out of Westminster, when we get into the country, the calculation from Dominic Cummings and those in Number 10 is that the people who voted to leave the European Union will suddenly come round to, they will say Boris Johnson is on our side and we can deliver Brexit. But
if these are deliberate provocations, Theo, it's a very long list.
It is a very long list, but of course it leads to this sense of chaos in government. It leads to this sense that the machine of government is collapsing in itself.
And the highest court in Milan has said that he acted unlawfully in the advice he gave to the Queen.
Yes, but
that doesn't help Boris Johnson's case as being a defender of the people. The people rather like the Queen.
The people do like the Queen, but Boris Johnson and what he has said is that they wanted to get Brexit over the line, and if they had to resort to these methods in extremis in order for that to happen, then so be it. That was what Boris Johnson's narrative was as the front runner in that Conservative leadership race.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't rule out proroguing Parliament, and that is why Boris Johnson.
But if
it is an odd strategy. It is. But
I don't think it's a strategy.
I don't even know if
I think these are mistakes. I mean, if you
I think they are. I'm not saying that they aren't mistakes. I could well see, Nigel, that you could easily see them, and it could be a ginormous miscalculation because Boris Johnson is going to have to come to the House of Commons tomorrow. He doesn't have a Commons majority.
Will he resign?
He's minus 45. No, he won't.
Will there be a motion of confidence in him as leader?
But Jeremy Corbyn can't do that. If Jeremy Corbyn puts in a motion of confidence, and Jeremy Corbyn has said this evening that he is going to do that, Jeremy Corbyn puts in a motion of confidence, because of the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, Jeremy Corbyn is the only realistic person who could become Prime Minister. Is Nicholas Soames going to put Jeremy Corbyn in Number 10? Is Richard Benyon going to put Jeremy Corbyn in Number 10?
No, but what it would do, what a motion of confidence would do, is not automatically replace the Prime Minister, but give us that sort of 2-week cooling off period in which
somebody has to come forward.
Somebody has to come forward.
The only person could be, because of the Labour whipping operation, the only person could be Jeremy Corbyn. And if Jeremy Corbyn comes forward, does Jeremy Corbyn really want to be the man, given the Brexit shenanigans we've seen down in Brighton this week? Does he really want to be the man to go and shake Donald Tusk's hand, to shake Jean-Claude Juncker's hand, and be the man who extended Brexit until January the 31st?
So the zombie parliament continues.
Exactly.
For now. Thank you, Theo. Well, there you are. Should he resign? I think it's a matter of honour. He has to offer it. Theo and others think that he won't. What do you think? Mike, and you caller from Orpington, what do you make of it all?
Nigel, I think that, I'll be absolutely honest, I voted Remain.
Uh-huh.
And I voted Remain, not for immigration, not for laws, not for anything. I'll be totally honest with you, I was petrified that my mortgage would go through the roof and I couldn't afford my mortgage.
There's a lot of people in your position, Mike, absolutely.
Right, so I've got no real Remain or Leave or anything to do with it. But once the vote was the vote, you've got to respect that. We live in the UK. The UK respects votes. We set that across the world. So you had to honour it. I honestly think when Boris became Prime Minister, the way that he has gone about this, the way that he just put up barriers, I understand what he was trying to do, but the way he put himself in a box and he created this thing around him that was going to come against him all the time. You must be fuming.
Mike, it was always going to be difficult to get Brexit done. Of course it was, with a predominantly Remain Parliament. But I think what he did, by announcing the Queen's speech... I'll tell you what's remarkable, Mike. Those that have tried for 3.5 years to overturn the result of the referendum have, as a result of this prorogation ruling, now claim that they are the Democrats. Those that want to stop the referendum result are now claiming they're on the side of the people in democracy. And, Mike, I think... whatever Boris's intentions, they have made some catastrophic mistakes.
Unbelievable. I watched it. I've actually watched it on Netflix about Cummings and the Leave campaign, and it was brilliant. He's a very intelligent guy. I just think he's just carried it one stage too far. He's annoyed so many people, and they've all galvanised against him. And now Boris is gone.
Yeah, he's united the Remainers, and I have to say, amazing. He's even allowed the Remainers, who want more and more powers to go to Brussels, to claim they're on the side of parliamentary sovereignty. Mike, great call. Thank you. Lots of people like Mike voted Remain because they were fearful what would happen to their mortgages or their businesses. That was what Project Fear did, I guess. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
MPs are returning to Westminster to resume their seats in the Commons tomorrow after Boris Johnson was found to have acted unlawfully in suspending Parliament. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's told his party conference the Prime Minister should resign and there should be a general election in light of the Supreme Court ruling. Speaking in New York, where he's attending a UN summit, Mr Johnson said he will abide by the unanimous decision of the 11 judges, even though he strongly disagrees with them, but will be pressing on with his plans for Brexit. LBC weather. Heavy rain for parts of northern and southern England, Wales and eastern Scotland overnight, a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M3 northbound. 2 lanes are closed because of an accident before the M25 at Junction 2. There are delays on the M4 eastbound after an accident earlier before the M25. There are queues around Finsbury Park. Seven Sisters Road stays closed in both directions because of a serious accident near Blackstock Road. On the trains, Greater Anglia and Stansted Express services are delayed by up to half an hour at Liverpool Street after a signalling problem caused by flooding earlier. London Overground and TfL Rail also have severe delays at Liverpool Street. On the Underground, there's no service on the Metropolitan line between Ruislip and Uxbridge and no Piccadilly line between Rayners Lane and Uxbridge because of an investigation, and there are also severe delays on the entire Circle, District and Hammersmith and City lines.
LBC.
It can be convincing when someone calls you pretending to be your bank, especially when they say your money is at risk and you should transfer your funds into a safe account. Well, don't be fooled. At Lloyds Bank, we will never call and ask you to move your money into another account. We believe nothing is more important than our customers' trust. And together, we can keep your money safe. Lloyds Bank, by your side.
This is LBC.
Cheers. Done your first digital VAT return yet?
No rush.
You know the June to August quarterly deadline for filing returns is 7th of October.
Ages.
I guess if you use Xero, there's no need to panic.
Mm-hmm. Xero?
Xero accounting software makes doing your VAT return easy, and you're making tax digital compliant.
And if I'm not using Xero?
You could panic.
Or
get Xero.
Buy Xero now and get 50% off. Visit xero.com. T's and C's apply.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, An insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
Hey phone, connect to Wi-Fi.
Connecting to cyber criminals.
You're not listening. I said Wi-Fi.
I'm listening. Cyber criminals could be too. Using Wi-Fi could leave your personal data exposed.
How can I keep it private?
With a secure VPN that encrypts your data, you need new Norton 360. It has multiple layers of protection, including VPN, device security, password manager, and more.
Ooh.
Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money, and times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
It was 11-0 at the Supreme Court today, and Justice Hale, she said that actually the Prime Minister had acted unlawfully. Now, before the break, we were talking about the role of the Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, and his office have responded, saying the government acted in good faith and believed the prorogation of Parliament was both lawful and constitutional. And until this judgment today, it was. Because we are making up new constitutional law on the hoof with a relatively brand new Supreme Court, a political court. It's not something we've ever had before. And it's going to take us many months and years to catch up with that huge change that Tony Blair put upon us. But I'm not here to argue against the decision. I do feel it was more political than legal, but I don't think that's the point. The point is, how should Boris respond? Well, John Bercow was very, very fast out of the blocks and on to College Green within minutes. Within minutes. You'd almost have thought he knew what the judgment was going to be. Let's hear John Bercow earlier.
It will not be possible for there to be a Prime Minister's questions tomorrow. However, there will be full scope for urgent questions, for ministerial statements, and for applications for emergency debates.
And all said with the most extraordinary grin. And really, I suppose right now, John Bercow's about the most powerful man in the country. So the Commons resumes at 11:30 tomorrow, which gives a real problem because the Conservative Party conference is starting in Birmingham at the weekend. And they're going to ask, the Conservative Party are going to ask Parliament to have a recess of Parliament for the Conservative Party conference. I'll have a bet with anybody that Parliament doesn't grant it. But we'll see. Should Boris resign? I think as a matter of honour, he simply has to offer it to the House of Commons tomorrow. And if Jeremy Corbyn and co don't take up that challenge, then that's fine. But I just don't see how, even if you disagree with it, I don't see how you can ignore a judgment of this magnitude. Strange, though, that the government, that Boris Johnson, could have put in a witness statement to the Supreme Court explaining why he'd made these decisions and chose not to. It was the same in the Court of Session in Edinburgh. Again, I don't understand that. Mark is a new caller from Northampton. Good evening, Mark.
Hi, Nigel. Pleasure to speak to you.
What should Boris do, in your opinion?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I think that he's been fed bad advice, basically, by the Attorney General. I don't think that the minutiae of British constitutional law is really his forte, and he acted on the advice that he was given, and that advice was bad.
Well, the advice, I think, was based on what had happened for the last 800 years.
But it's not his job to know that inside out, really. It's not really his.
Well, it is. Well, it is. It is.
It should.
For the Attorney General, it is, isn't it? I mean, the Attorney General,
The Attorney General, yeah, it absolutely should be. It shouldn't. It arguably should be Boris's as well. But it absolutely should be the Attorney General's job. It is his job one of his many jobs, to feed the Prime Minister accurate information. And on this occasion, he hasn't.
Do you think a head should roll somewhere, Mark?
I don't know. The whole thing is...
Do you know what? I don't know is, without doubt, the most honest answer that anyone can give right at the moment, because it's very, very difficult to predict the future. Do you feel a bit sorry for Boris, Mark, or not?
That's where I've been for the last few years. I've got to say, I'm immensely grateful to you for everything you've done in British politics over the last few years. I used to be an ardent Remainer. I voted Remain. I believed in the European project.
Mm-hmm.
I believed that staying in the European Union was the best thing for us. And then something happened, and something monumental happened. It completely changed my opinion on the whole situation.
What was that monumental thing, Mark?
I was kicked in the head by a horse.
Right, very good. OK, fine. Thank you. Mark, we're going to move on from that and go to David, a new caller from Thatcham in Berkshire.
Hello, Nigel.
Hello there. So,
first-time caller, a bit nervous.
Well, you're very, very welcome, David.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine we're having a chat over a cup of tea. So, do you feel a little bit of sympathy for Boris tonight?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what Johnson was doing was correct anyway. The way I see it is that the democracy in Britain, the people's, it's the end of the democracy in Britain and the beginning of a parliamentary dictatorship.
Well, I worry, David, I worry about that. I worry about what's happening here too. However, is it not possible, David, that at a general election, the people can reset the balance in Parliament?
They can, but we had the referendum.
Mm-hmm.
Until that referendum is, in my opinion, carried forward, it doesn't make any difference. If you don't carry out the referendum, then the Parliament is ruling against the people, the general public.
Yes, David, nobody's more furious than me about what Parliament has done, the way parliamentarians have behaved, how they've broken their manifesto promises, willfully, openly, gone against everything they said in the referendum. David, I'm with you on that, but we do at least, David, have an opportunity, if we wish, if we judge they've behaved badly, we do have an opportunity, and who knows, I think it'll probably be in November this year, we will have a chance at an election to vote against those who've broken their promises. Shouldn't we grab that opportunity with both hands when it presents itself?
I suppose so, yes.
Yeah, I mean, my worry, David, is that a lot of people will say, what's the point of politics at all if we don't get our vote enacted?
Exactly what that's what I actually think now, because, I voted to leave.
Yes.
And I will not change my mind. But I know there's a lot of people who think, all this trouble for the 3 years or something, and they'll probably change their mind.
Well, you know, this Brexit fatigue, David, can go one of two ways. One way is people say, well, it's not worth the bother, let's just stay. But the other is they say, do you know what, the hell with it. Let's just get out as quickly as possible and get on with the rest of our lives. You know, and David, I think there are more people now saying... Certainly the evidence suggests. Well, I think there are. David, keep happy. I know it's difficult. It's been awful, and thank you for your call. David on Facebook says, only an election can sort this situation out. David, I've been saying that here for about 8 weeks, I think now. Colin said, I bet once he gets back, Boris will prorogue Parliament again, this time for 45 days. No, Colin, I don't think he's going to do that somehow. Alan says, Jeremy Corbyn will be the next Prime Minister of the UK, maybe sooner than we thought. Well, he could possibly be a temporary Prime Minister. And there was a bit more unity in the hall today at the Labour conference than perhaps we would have expected. But I will say that Corbyn's speech, I thought, actually rambled on and on and on, and I felt he slightly missed an open goal this evening. That was just my feeling. I'm not always critical of Jeremy Corbyn. Certainly during 2017, I spotted how well he was doing on the platform. I didn't think tonight really worked. Stuart is a new caller from Welling. Good evening, Stuart.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
I am well.
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you what you would have done differently if you were in Boris's position.
Yes, that's a fair question. If I'd been in Boris's position, I would have said, thank you, Frau Merkel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've given me a 30-day get-out-of-jail-free card. 30 days when I can show everybody that I'm actually putting constructive suggestions back, how to get rid of the backstop, which was Boris's priority. And instead of playing the long game there, Stuart, and you know, if people give you time, generally in life, it's a good thing to take it. And what he did, he came up with this idea, right, I'm going to call a Queen's speech. We're going to close Parliament for a few days, extra, and we're going to have a Queen's speech. And in doing so, Stuart, that has proved to be something for which there was a very small benefit, and it's been a catastrophic political risk. It's led... Look, the Supreme Court would not have met today if he hadn't done it. You wouldn't have, the SNP, Liberals, many Lib Dems, many in the Labour Party, who want us to have a second referendum, want us to remain... Some even who want us to revoke Article 50 are now claiming they're on the side of democracy. Stuart, he's made a bad mistake, is my point.
Yeah, but you would not have prorogued it yourself, Parliament, then, given the position.
Why would you willfully provoke the opposition? And that's what he did.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I just wondered, if you were concerned about scrutiny from the opposition, that, you might do it like Boris did it.
Well, the thing is, Stuart, they've had 3 years to talk about this in Parliament, and all we were actually talking about was Parliament being closed for an extra 4 or 5 days. I think Boris and the cabinet could have coped with it. It's. Do you feel? Stuart, do you feel a bit of sympathy for Boris for what's happened, or?
I think he's been left with no choice. I think he wants to get Brexit done, so he did what he thought was best. And yes, probably gone about it the wrong way, but as you say, it's advice he's taken. So,
yeah. Well, in the end, that's leadership, isn't it? We get advice, and if we're leaders of things, we get advice, and we take it or we don't. Stuart, thanks for the call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 in time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson insists he will press on with his plans for Brexit despite a Supreme Court ruling that his 5-week suspension of Parliament was unlawful. Speaking in New York, where he's attending a UN summit of world leaders, the Prime Minister said he will abide by the unanimous decision of the 11 judges that the prorogation was void and of no effect, even though he strongly disagrees with it. Here, the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's leading opposition party calls for Mr Johnson to resign, telling his party's conference he's shown contempt for democracy and the rule of law and that there should be a general election. The Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, has confirmed MPs will be resuming their sittings again from 11:30 tomorrow morning. Police say they're treating the death of a baby in East London as murder. The 16-month-old girl died of a suspected head injury a week ago, 4 days after falling ill in Plaistow. A 36-year-old man was previously arrested and bailed on suspicion of GBH. LBC weather, heavy rain for parts of northern and southern England, Wales and eastern Scotland overnight. Cloudy elsewhere with a low of 12 degrees.
This is LBC.
Fly Ryanair to Ireland this autumn. Stroll along secluded beaches before enjoying a live music session with locals. Fly to Ireland's wild Atlantic way from $24.99 per person one way. Ryanair. Low fares made simple. Limited availability. Booked by the 16th of October for travel by the end of November 2019. For conditions, see ryanair.com.
The biggest cat in the world was longer than a cricket bat. Think that's big? Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is an unmissable £167 million. 167 million! Now that's big!
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot is capped at €190 million. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Play along with our 10-second teaser. Ready? Who is the patron saint of accountancy? The answer is St. Matthew the Evangelist. If you got that right, you must be pretty smart. So you'll know who to choose for your business accounting, audit and tax affairs. Search Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
Baby.
Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Pimlico Plumbers is the company you can trust. Yes, you can. And they're so much more than just plumbers. They have qualified electricians, skilled carpenters, gas-safe heating engineers. For bathrooms, kitchens, appliances, building, roofing, drains, and of course plumbing. They've got you covered. Contact Pimlico today on 0207 928 8888 or at pimlicoplumbers.com, where the answer will be yes, we can. 24 hours a day and with a 1-hour response when required.
You can trust some things to start your day off just right. The patter of rain falling outside. Lovely. The same rain falling inside through a leaking roof. Not so lovely. But you can make the rain go away, thanks to trustatrader.com. Simply pop online to find plenty of vetted, reviewed, reliable professionals in an abundance of trades. Like a roofer who's a ray of sunshine.
Trustatrader.com. Hey phone, connect to Wi-Fi.
Connecting to cyber criminals.
You're not listening. I said Wi-Fi.
I'm listening. Cyber criminals could be too. Using Wi-Fi could leave your personal data exposed.
How can I keep it private?
With a secure VPN that encrypts your data, you need new Norton 360. It has multiple layers of protection, including VPN, device security, password manager, and more.
Ooh.
Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Not just the Supreme Court, but at 9 o'clock this morning, we had a release from the National Crime Agency. And they have, since October last year, been investigating Aaron Banks and Liz Bilney of Leave.eu and Better for Britain. This followed a lengthy investigation of over a year by the Electoral Commission, who, whilst they fined Mr Banks a small sum of money, this was frankly for not putting things in the right boxes. But they said that they had suspicion that the money Mr Banks had put into the referendum campaign had not been his, and they also suspected that there had been criminal activity. This is what Elcom, without any evidence at all, told the public, and then reported this to the National Crime Agency. And ever since then, there are certain media outlets who have been going for this again and again and again, accusing Banks of criminality, saying the referendum should be overturned because it was all done as a result of bent money. Oh, and of course it was the Russians, and I was involved, and right in the middle of it all. Well, I'm very pleased to say that the National Crime Agency has found no evidence of criminal offences whatsoever. And I'm pleased for Aaron Banks, and I've defended him here against many of you that have called up and asked questions. I've defended him all the way through. But it is quite something when, with no evidence, you get referred, the information is put into the public domain, and the fact that you're running a business and employing hundreds of people, and the fact that they actually get directly affected by this doesn't seem to matter to anybody. And it sort of kind of reminds me of the Cliff Richard case and other cases like that, where if somebody is under investigation but there's zero evidence, should the public really know about this until the investigation's taken place? Food for thought. Anyway, I'm pleased for Aaron Banks and Liz Bilney, and a little bit for myself too, because many media reports said that I too had somehow been taking dirty money in the referendum campaign. Not true. Back to Boris. Now, Lewis Goodall from Sky News says in his 62 days as PM, Boris has lost 6 votes in Parliament, lost his majority, lost 23 MPs, lost his prorogation, lost the Supreme Court case, probably lost his party conference, and advised the Queen to act unlawfully. Add to that, united the establishment, the Remainer opposition, allowed those who want to crush our democracy to say that they're now the Democrats, and those who want to surrender power to Brussels to say they actually are the ones that are defending our sovereignty. It's not a good record. Theo Usherwood said this is all part of an incredible, cunning plan, potentially, by Dominic Cummings. I don't believe a word of it. I think the thing most of all that surprised Boris Johnson was when Labour stopped there being a general election. Now, today Corbyn was talking about a general election. At some point, folks, before long, there is going to be one. But what should Boris do? Paolo says, before Boris resigns, there should be a shed load of MPs who jump ship to other parties without by-elections. The system is rotten to the core. Paolo, that is a very, very common view. Remainers are being selective about democracy. What law did Boris break? What about the precedent set by John Major when he prorogued Parliament? I am disgusted, says Robert in Wolverhampton. Rich takes issue with me on YouTube and says, Corbyn's speech was the best yet. I reckon he'll be Prime Minister. Rich, I disagree. I think he started strongly but finished very weakly. Let's go to Andrew in Warwick. Andrew, good evening.
Good evening.
So, should Boris, as a matter of honour, say to the House of Commons tomorrow, I offer you my resignation, do you choose to accept it?
Absolutely not. I think at the beginning of this, honour was jettisoned. I mean, we've jettisoned losers' consent.
Yes,
this is down to what you can prove legally now, isn't it?
Well, Andrew, I'm with you. I've banged on and on and on about this principle of losers' consent. Absolutely, and I think that's why our politics is actually in the messes it's in. But Andrew, whether you like it or not, and whether I like it or not, the highest court in the land has judged by 11-0 that the Prime Minister acted unlawfully in his advice to the Queen. It's quite a serious thing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And as we heard just before your show started, listening to Mr. Baker, he made the point that those judges are all subordinate to judges who had advised Boris that it was lawful, and that in the event that the Supreme Court decides that it wasn't, that isn't really his fault any more than it's the Queen's, is it? If he was wrongly advised. Do
you know what? If I'm running a company, Andrew, I'm acting as managing director of a company, and I'm given a load of advice. I take that advice. It proves to be utterly catastrophic, cost the company a fortune. The board sack me, don't they?
Well, the board would sack you, but then again, he has offered a general election, and nobody will take it. The thing that worries me the most, the thing I'm really terrified of, is that we're going to be offered this election, this chance to make good, and if we don't get rid of at least 500 of the people in that bloody Parliament, then we're going to. This is our one chance. I mean, and to be honest with you, and forgive me for speaking directly to you, but for goodness sake, please get some policies out there. I mean, you said some fantastic things about HS2. Mm-hmm. What about right of recall? What about if you combine Gina Miller is particularly good for hoisting herself on her own petard. I mean, that's why we're looking at it and no-deal Brexit in the first place. This would be an excellent way to snip the wings of any future government that tried to prevent direct democracy. If you could,
Andrew, I think the right of recall. Andrew, I think the rights of recall. I think the argument now for political reform in this country is overwhelming, and it's not just coming from Leavers; it's coming from Remainers too. I absolutely agree.
You know what I would do if I was Boris?
Go on.
If I was Boris, I would threaten the nuclear option. Now, what I would threaten is to use my position as the Prime Minister to drive through the Tilbrook case, which would eject us from the EU before the 31st.
Yeah, it just Andrew, it's for the birds. It's for the birds. It's for the birds. Thank you. Going to go to Kathy, a new caller from Northampton. Good evening, Kathy.
Oh, good evening, R. Churchill. It's wonderful to speak to you.
Well, that's very kind of you, but I don't drink as much as he did. Now,
it's
Kathy.
A dark day.
Now, Kathy, it's a dark day, yeah?
Yeah. It's just watching the horror of democracy being snatched away from you. As a Brexit leaver, obviously.
Does it make you, Kathy, does it make you feel like, let's just pour a large gin and give up? Or does it make you feel, roll on a general election or roll on whatever, whatever comes, I'm going to fight for this even harder? Which reaction do you have to it?
Well, when we first voted for Brexit, before we got it, I was terrified. I could see what was happening around me in society. That's why I voted. I never had a leaflet. This time today, I felt exactly the same fears of the democracy being taken away from us. And I'm watching a Supreme Court take our democracy away They're not answerable to our Parliament. The Lisbon Treaty has given the EU can override anything our Parliament.
Well, I suppose you could say, Kathy,
says.
Could Boris go to one of the European courts to try and get it overturned? I'm sort of half joking, really, but Kathy.
No, I knew this was going to happen because of the fact that the Lisbon Treaty. This is the Lisbon Treaty in action, and people need to understand what the EU is. It's like Japanese knotweed. It has literally conquered us by treaty, 200,000 laws.
Well, it hasn't conquered.
And we're now standing at the cusp of World War III.
Kathy, it hasn't conquered you, has it? And we're not at the cusp of World War III.
No,
we're not at the cusp of World War III.
I want to fight. I want to stand up. I want an election.
Yes.
I want an election. I want the people of this country to stand up and be counted, and to take back the lovely democratic, our rule of law, our democracy, our decency, our morality, and our borders, for the sake of all good people that are here, all good human beings that believe in that and came here for that many years ago to live under democracy.
Kathy, you've said it very passionately, and I do agree. Democracy, I think, is vital, and it is being undermined, even traduced. Corelli, usefully on YouTube, says, Jacob Rees-Mogg should take up the mantle if Boris resigns. I mean, it looks like Boris isn't going to resign. And you know, Theo doesn't even think that necessarily Jeremy Corbyn will put forward a motion of confidence tomorrow. So we just sort of limp on for a few weeks. But at some point, I mean, Corbyn was saying, bring on the general election. And whether he means that or not, or quite when, I don't think a general election can be far away. Thomas on Facebook makes a very, very important point, one that I was hinting at earlier. This has set a new precedent for anyone to take the government to court for a decision they don't agree with. Thomas, it started with Gina Miller 3 years ago. It was Gina Miller again today. We are now in an awful mess. If in future the big decisions get taken by the Supreme Court and not actually by the people, I think we're in a very bad place. But that is where we are. We're going to have a written constitution, but that's a debate for another day. For now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
MPs are returning to Westminster to resume their seats in the Commons tomorrow after Boris Johnson was found to have acted unlawfully in suspending Parliament. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's told his party conference the Prime Minister should resign and there should be a general election in light of the Supreme Court ruling. Speaking in New York, where he's attending a UN summit, Mr Johnson said he will abide by the unanimous decision of the 11 judges, even though he strongly disagrees with them. But he will be pressing on with his plans for Brexit. LBC weather. Heavy rain for parts of northern and southern England, Wales and eastern Scotland through tonight, a low of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M3 northbound. 2 lanes are closed because of an accident before the M25 at Junction 2. In Finsbury Park, Seven Sisters Road stays closed in both directions because of a serious accident near Blackstock Road. It's very slow on the A1 out of town because of an accident at Stirling Corner. On the trains, Greater Anglia and Stansted Express services have delays of up to half an hour and cancellations at Liverpool Street after a signalling problem caused by flooding earlier. On the tube, there's no Metropolitan line between Ruislip and Uxbridge and no Piccadilly line between Rayners Lane and Uxbridge. The District line has no service between Barking and Upminster, and there are also severe delays on the rest of the District line and on the entire Circle and Hammersmith and City lines.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Boris fought the law, but the law won. It's the constitutional clash of the century. But what happens next? That's what we'll try to ascertain between 7 and 10.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Millions of people are missing out by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB offers interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. Plus, you can stop your friends and family missing out by recommending the Plus account to them. And when they switch, you'll both earn £75. Search online or visit your local branch. Terms and conditions apply.
John's just napping after a successful NEOP. But when he wakes up again, it won't be to an unexpected bill. Because unlike some insurers, Vitality Health Insurance includes our full cover promise as standard. So we'll pay for all his inpatient and day patient consultant fees in full. Isn't that right, John? We'll come back later.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different.
Your consultant must be recognised by us and the condition and treatment eligible under your plan. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
With state-of-the-art cabins, world-class entertainment and award-winning service, you'll arrive ready to make the most of what lies ahead. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
I had been to another dentist and had long conversations about bone grafting.
At Darwood and Tanner, our experience with dental implants often means bone grafting is not necessary.
When I met Andrew and he looked at the various x-rays, he said, you do not need to have bone grafts. He can work around places where there is no bone or there is little bone.
Download your information pack at darwoodandtanner.co.uk today. Your smile is our healthy obsession. High-quality kitchen you've dreamed of at a price well within your budget. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
This month, all kitchens are half price with a free oven hob and extractor. Book your free home design visit today at roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Offer ends soon. Minimum spend applies.
The biggest cat in the world was longer than a cricket bat. Think that's big? Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is an unmissable £167 million. 167 million! Now that's big!
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot is capped at €190 million. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money, and times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Should Boris Johnson resign? Well, it doesn't look like he's going to. And a lot of you feel, I think, a certain degree of sympathy with him. You know, given advice by the Attorney General, does something, suddenly is found, by the highest court in the land to have acted unlawfully in the advice that he gave the Queen. It is pretty serious stuff. DUP leader Nigel Dodds has accepted that it's not possible the EU may leave the EU on the 31st of October. I have to say, I think there's now very little chance we'll leave on the 31st of October. I think extension becomes pretty much certain. There are some voices saying, no, the withdrawal agreement is going to come back to the House of Commons, but I really don't see it. And who would Brussels negotiate with, given the mess that the whole thing is in at the moment? Difficult for Boris. He said again and again, we will leave on the 31st of October, do or die. Just as Theresa May said 108 times, we'd leave on the 29th of March. And a lot of these difficulties don't just come from Lib Dems and Labour. Many of the difficulties that both Prime Ministers have experienced have actually come from their own party. The Conservative Party is still very split in terms of where it wants to go with this. And I get by text from Steve, why didn't Boris submit evidence to the court? I just don't know, Steve. I couldn't understand it in the case of Scotland, and I still can't understand it now. Although, Justice Hale did say that motive wasn't necessarily what they were looking at in this case. But I would have thought that you would have tried to defend your decision as much as you possibly could. Let's go to John in Glasgow. John, good evening to you.
Hello, Nigel. Nice to speak to you again. Nigel, I'm in despair about the politics at the moment.
John, you're not alone. Don't worry.
Especially Boris Johnson. I can't think of a single thing he has done right since when he was Foreign Secretary. He got everything wrong when he was Foreign Secretary. He's now the Prime Minister. It was a disastrous campaign for him in the election to be put to be the leader of the Conservative Party.
Was it? What do you want? But Johnny won it comfortably.
Yeah, but he ducked out of most of the debates and the personal issues, which we won't discuss. Now he's a Prime Minister, and everything he has touched has fallen to pieces. He's not even fit to hold office.
Well, I did read out earlier on, you may have heard it, the Lewis Goodhall from Sky News.
Exactly.
His achievements in 62 days. But John, in his defence, he's in a very tight spot with the Remainer Parliament, isn't he?
Yeah, but he is no statesman, Nigel. He is not a statesman. He hasn't thought things through. He just makes glib statements and say, I'm going to do this by the 31st of October. He has no plan to do it. He has no idea how he's going to do it. And just saying he's going to do it isn't going to make it happen.
Do you agree with me, John, that the calling for a Queen's speech, the prorogation, was wholly unnecessary and has led to much of this mess?
Absolutely. He shot himself right in the foot. Absolutely. He had no need to do that. If you think back, even 10 years, even if you don't agree with the politics of Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, or David Cameron, those people were statesmen. They knew how to run the country. Boris Johnson isn't even in the same class as those people.
But is he trying, John? Is he trying to defend the 17.4 million?
I don't think so. I don't think he's. If he was an effective politician,
I'm not sure that's fair.
If he came up with a reasonable way of leaving the EU by the 31st of October, if he put concrete proposals, written proposals, to the European Commission in paper. That's what he was supposed to do. If he had done that...
I know, and Mrs Merkel gave him 30 days. 30 days, get out of jail free card. He didn't play it. John, I'm going to move on. I've got lots of other callers, but thank you for your point of view. And John just doesn't think Boris is a statesman. But I think John's unfair on one thing. I think he does want to deliver. I just think they've made some very, very bad errors along the way. Brenda is a new caller from Belfast. Good evening, Brenda.
Good evening, Nigel. I would like to say that I believe he actually put the judiciary's backs up by not submitting an explanatory statement. I think they considered that a snub, and I think that maybe helped inform their decision as well. But I think that sort of democracy should be spelled DMOCRASSY in future, because that really sums it up. I think we've entered a period of real democratic deviancy. But I think Boris, as you have said, has made many tactical and strategic errors, and I think that Dominic Cummings has maybe been one of his greatest liabilities. I mean, Boris has been too confrontational and too loose with his tongue. He sort of told the Remainers what he was doing at every turn, like, I'm not going to, ask for an extension. He gives them the tactical advantage each occasion.
And that's why, Brenda, the 30 days that Mrs Merkel gave him, he could have said what he could have indicated what he was doing, but actually kept them all guessing a bit, couldn't he, really?
Yes, I think because he was doing so well in the polls, that buoyed him up, and he adopted this gung-ho attitude and thought he was invincible. I think he's allowed, all of that. He's run away with himself, basically, in his popularity, and not really thought about what he was doing. He should have held his cards closer to his chest.
OK, Brenda, he's played the game wrong. I rather agree with that, I have to say. I don't doubt his sincerity in wanting to deliver. I think he genuinely does, but I think they've made a mess of it. I'm going to ask Gordon, who's calling from Ballymoney in Northern Ireland. Hi, Gordon.
Hello, Nigel. How are you? Good to be on your show again.
Good to have you back. Yeah, so what do you think of him, then?
Oh, I don't think he's getting a fair hearing. I think he's come in at the culminating point of a crisis in British politics. And to quote his track record recently on votes, I think is quite disingenuous to say that he's failed. The process and the Parliament has failed. He is bringing about the realisation of that. And what we need now is, if he's going to stand or fall, he can decide to resign tomorrow. But my main fear as a Brexiteer now is that the Remain parties get together, cobble together some form of union amongst themselves, and then they put to us here's the vote between a terrible deal and staying in and saying democracy has been served. So genuinely have real concerns in respect of what's going to happen.
So do you think Mrs May's awful treaty could come back, Gordon, and get passed, possibly?
Yeah, well, instead of calling it Norwegian Plus, they'll call it the Norwegian Blue Parrot. They'll shake it a few times in the cage, and they'll say, look, it moved. They'll try and sell that.
Well, I hope you're wrong, Gordon. I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. All right, Gordon, thank you very much indeed. Tom from Derbyshire says Boris should stay as PM. He says, now I support bringing back Theresa May's deal. This has gone on too long. Let's just get out and then we can move on. No, Tom. If we sign up to the withdrawal agreement treaty, we'll be trapped for years. Robert is a new caller from Cumbria. Robert, the time is short. Welcome to the show. Should Boris quit?
I think really they all should quit.
Well, I think a lot of people would agree with that, yeah.
Now, I'll tell you the reason why, shall I?
Yeah.
I was studying Kendal this afternoon.
Yes.
And I've been hard at work, and I had to listen to Tim Farron stood not 3 feet away from me, talking about democracy.
Oh, right. Is this the guy that supported the referendum in 2016 and now wants to cancel the result? Is it that one?
It's that one.
I know.
Now, I think I really think they mean democracy, because there should be a new dictionary explanation of what it really means. There is no democracy in this country. It is an absolute sham. I'm not surprised that I wouldn't. Let's say I wouldn't be surprised if all the MPs are wandering around outside Parliament because they do not understand the concept of in and out.
And Robert, do you know what? Amazing. Anna Soubry today, leading a party at 0% in the polls, and yet there she was, plastered all over the BBC and the media again. Robert, we're out of time. I wish we weren't. But isn't it interesting that those that want to cancel the referendum and break their word now claim to be on the side of democracy? And that is the classic mistake, I'm afraid. Boris Johnson's Queen's speech has been a disaster. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. At 10 tonight, it is Tom Swarbrick. Up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Well, earlier today, James in Bromley tweeted me this. Ian, I felt so good and powerful when I wrote my cross in the leave box. And I feel after 3.5 years, my vote has been completely taken from me. Democracy is dead. Well, that doesn't necessarily relate to the decision that the Supreme Court made today, but in a lot of people's minds, that's exactly what they're thinking. They think that this decision has killed democracy, which, if you think about it, is a bit odd.